Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a deep dive that's maybe a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different.
So we're going to be looking at the idea of finesse,
Okay,
but not finesse in like the, smooth talking way that you might be thinking of.
right.
We're talking about a whole life philosophy. And our guide for this is a book called Finesse, The Art of Control Without Conflict by Yavoy Rick.
Hmm.
And Rick has got a really interesting backstory. He kind of came from the streets,
Okay.
and then transformed his life to become this self-help author and entrepreneur.
Wow.
So that whole journey really informs his unique perspective on finesse. It's kind
Yeah.
of this blend of street smarts and personal development advice all in one.
Interesting combination.
Yeah, so he's advocating for using honesty and control as the foundation for navigating like all these different areas of life,
It's
relationships, finances, personal power, all of that.
a pretty bold approach.
It is one of the things that really jumped out at me right away was how he flips the script on typical relationship advice. Okay. You always hear like you got to play games or, be coy or whatever.
Right.
And he just comes right out and says honesty is the most powerful tool.
Really?
Straight up.
That's not what you usually hear.
No, not at all.
So how does that actually work?
Well, so he talks about being upfront from the beginning, setting the tone early, and he really emphasizes respect, confidence, and clarity.
Okay.
It's not about being rude or like brutally honest.
Right.
It's about being genuine and assertive in a way that builds strong connections.
Interesting. So kind of owning your truth.
Yeah, exactly. And he even has this phrase, own the new rules.
I like that.
And what I took from that is, you define what success means to you, whether it's in your relationships, your finances, your career.
You're not letting society dictate the terms.
Exactly. You're not playing by someone else's rule book.
So it's about empowerment then.
Absolutely. And he ties that empowerment to building financial power.
Except,
He's really big on having multiple income streams, being disciplined with your money, having that hustle mentality.
you got to have that hustle.
Yeah. But here's the thing. He's not saying do it all alone.
Oh, interesting.
He actually encourages finding partners who can help you reach those financial goals.
Oh, that's cool.
So it's more about collaboration, not competition.
Like building an empire together.
Exactly. And speaking of empires, he dedicates a whole chapter to the psychology of persuasion.
Wow. Okay.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
It's about understanding how people think.
Exactly. It's about understanding what makes people tick and using that knowledge to build trust and influence.
So is he talking about like manipulation tactics?
No, not exactly. He breaks down these principles like reciprocity.
Okay.
You know that feeling you get when someone does something nice and you feel obligated to return the favor?
Oh, yeah, I know that feeling.
He argues that you can actually use that to your advantage in a way that benefits both parties.
So it's more about creating win-win situations.
Exactly. And he constantly brings it back to honesty.
Okay.
He says that's the ultimate power move.
I'm starting to see why.
Yeah, it cuts through the BS, builds respect.
Saves you time, too.
Absolutely. You're not wasting energy on people or situations that aren't the right fit.
Yeah, it's like a filter.
Exactly. And he even applies this approach to polyamorous relationships.
Polyamorous relationships.
Yeah, he has a whole chapter on it.
Wow.
Oh.
So how does that work?
Well, he lays out this framework for how to manage multiple relationships successfully.
And the foundation is honesty and communication, I'm guessing.
You got it, open communication, setting clear boundaries, being upfront about what everyone needs.
It seems like a lot of work,
It definitely takes effort.
but it can be done.
Yeah, and he emphasizes that even the financial side of things needs to be transparent.
So no secrets.
Yeah, everyone's on the same page.
Interesting.
So it's clear that he sees control as something that doesn't have to equal conflict. He has a whole chapter on staying calm, being solution-oriented when disagreements inevitably pop up.
I like that approach.
Yeah, he's all about managing your emotions, thinking ahead to anticipate problems.
Being proactive.
Exactly, and focusing on how to fix things instead of playing the blame game.
Sounds like good advice for any relationship, really.
It is, and a big part of that is having charisma and confidence, right?
Yeah, gotta have that.
The book dives into how to project that kind of energy that draws people in.
So what are some of his tips?
Well, he outlines concrete steps to improve your body language,
Okay.
become more aware of your inner dialogue.
So that negative self-talk we all do.
Exactly, and to get comfortable with the idea of rejection.
Rejection is tough.
It is,
Yeah.
but he frames it as a way to filter out the wrong people and situations.
I didn't see that.
So it's about knowing your worth and not settling for less.
Makes sense.
Okay, so we're starting to get a feel for his overall philosophy.
Yeah.
But there's one chapter that really sparked my curiosity.
Which one?
It's called Finessing Financial Power, and it's about how to build wealth within relationships. But he takes this really unique stance on submission.
Submission.
Yeah, basically, he portrays a woman choosing to submit to her man's leadership as a strength.
Okay, this I got to hear more about.
It's something that can actually empower both of them to build wealth, according to him.
Wow, that's a different perspective for sure.
It is, and I know it might sound controversial to some people,
Yeah, I could see that.
but it's important to understand it within the context of his overall message about leadership and empowerment.
Okay, so before we dive deeper into that,
Mm.
what was your initial reaction when you first read about this submission concept?
Well, honestly, my first thought was, is this for real?
Hmm.
Like, it's not every day you see a self-help book advocating for submission, you know?
Right.
It kind of threw me off, but I tried to keep an open mind and see how it fit into his whole philosophy.
That's fair. I mean, it's easy to jump to conclusions without the full context.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
let's unpack it a bit. He's not talking about like blind obedience or anything like that, right? No, it's not about one person being totally in charge and the other just following orders.
Okay.
It's more like a woman consciously choosing to align herself with her man's leadership, trusting his vision and supporting his efforts.
Interesting. So it's more about like a strategic partnership.
Yeah, and Rick argues that this actually allows her to leverage her own strengths in a different way.
Okay, so instead of competing with each other, they're combining forces.
Exactly, and that's how they build that financial power together.
I can see how that could work, but I know some people are going to be like, wait, hold up. What about female empowerment?
Yeah, I get that it definitely challenges traditional feminist thinking.
So how do you reconcile those two things?
Well, maybe it's not as black and white as it seems.
Hmm.
Maybe it's about redefining what submission means,
Okay.
Not seeing it as weakness, but as a form of collaboration.
Like a different kind of strength.
Exactly.
Oh.
And it ties back to that whole owning the new rules thing.
So it's about choosing a dynamic that works for you, regardless of what society says. Okay, I can see how that could be empowering if it's a genuine choice made by both partners.
It has to be a choice.
Absolutely. But let's be real, this concept is not going to be for everyone.
Yeah, for some people, it's just a hard no.
And that's totally fine.
The important thing is to have those open and honest conversations.
About what you want from a relationship.
Exactly. What kind of power dynamics feel good and healthy for both people?
That makes a lot of sense. And it reminds me of how much he emphasizes communication throughout the book.
Oh, yeah, especially in the polyamory chapter.
Yeah, Polly Kings.
He's really big on transparency there.
Like it's non-negotiable.
Yeah, open communication, setting clear boundaries, being upfront about your needs and expectations.
That's the foundation for healthy polyamory, according to him.
And he even talks about addressing jealousy and conflict head on.
Not avoiding the tough stuff.
Nope. He says you got to deal with it directly.
It's like finessing those potential conflicts before they even explode.
Exactly, being proactive.
And that reminds me of his chapter on conflict-free control in general. He gives some really practical advice for staying calm under pressure.
Like what?
Controlling your breathing, using silence to de-escalate a situation,
Oh, that's a good one.
and focusing on solutions instead of blame.
So not getting caught up in who's right or wrong.
Exactly. And I love how he emphasizes that sometimes the best way to maintain control is to just walk away.
Walk away.
Yeah, from a toxic situation, even if it's tempting to try and fix it.
And sometimes you just got to cut your losses.
Exactly. It's about protecting your energy and your peace of mind.
And recognizing that you can't control everything.
Right. And it's interesting how this idea of control is woven throughout the book.
Yeah, it pops up in different contexts.
He even talks about controlling your inner dialogue as a way to build confidence.
Oh yeah, the negative self-talk can really sabotage you.
Exactly. So he stresses the importance of becoming aware of those patterns and replacing them with more empowering thoughts.
So it's about mindset.
It is, and he also talks about mastering your body language.
Projecting confidence through how you carry yourself.
Exactly. Posture, eye contact, your overall demeanor.
It all makes a difference.
And he even gives this kind of quirky tip about subtly mirroring the body language of the person you're talking to.
Mirroring.
Yeah, as a way to build rapport.
I've never heard that one before.
It's like a subtle way of creating a sense of connection and understanding.
Interesting.
Okay, so we've talked about relationships, finances, personal growth.
We've covered a lot.
And we can't forget his chapter on the art of sexual finesse.
Ah, yes, the Bodis chapter.
So I'm curious to hear your take on this one.
Well, it seems like he approaches intimacy with the same philosophy of honesty, communication, and understanding your partner's psychology.
Yeah, he talks about building trust and emotional connection as the foundation for a fulfilling, intimate life.
Which makes sense.
And he's big on understanding the female psyche.
being attuned to her needs and desires.
Exactly, and creating an experience that's truly memorable.
He also suggests that a woman's submission and intimacy can be a powerful expression of trust and vulnerability.
Okay, so he's carrying that concept of submission into the bedroom.
Yeah, but again, it's within the framework of mutual respect and shared pleasure.
So it's about creating a dynamic where both partners feel empowered and fulfilled.
Both physically and emotionally.
And it's interesting how he ties this back to leadership.
Oh, how so?
He suggests that a man who can master the art of sexual finesse is also more likely to be successful in other areas of life.
Like business and personal relationships.
Exactly.
Hmm. It makes you wonder if there's a connection between how you approach intimacy and how you navigate the world in general.
That's a good question.
Like, are those skills transferable?
It's something to think about,
It all comes back to self-awareness and being intentional about the choices you make.
whether it's in the bedroom or the boardroom.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
A lot.
Honesty, control, relationships, finances, intimacy.
This book is packed.
It really is. But before we wrap things up, I want to circle back to that submission concept one more time. It's definitely the most controversial part of his philosophy.
It is.
So I'm curious, after exploring all these other ideas, has your perspective on it shifted at all?
You know, it's funny. At first, I was pretty resistant to the idea.
Yeah.
It just felt so different from my own beliefs about equality.
Right.
But as we've been talking about it, it's more nuanced than it seems.
Yeah.
If it's a conscious choice made by both partners with shared goals and mutual respect, it doesn't feel as jarring.
That's a good point. I think it highlights how important it is to approach these conversations with an open mind,
Exactly.
to really try to understand where someone is coming from.
And to recognize that what works for one couple might not work for another.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all answer.
It's about finding what feels authentic and empowering for you and your partner.
Exactly. And that's a theme that runs throughout the book.
Yeah, he's all about finding what works for you.
Whether it's relationships, finances, personal growth,
It's about taking control of your life, defining your own version of success.
and finessing your way to a life that truly reflects your values.
It's not about following someone else's rules.
Yeah.
We're trying to fit into a box.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listener takes away from this conversation?
I think what really stood out to me was his focus on being intentional. You know,
Okay.
it's not enough to just hit those goals. You got to actively work to keep that success going and keep growing too.
Keep leveling up.
Exactly. And he's big on staying disciplined with your money, finding balance in your relationships, never stopping that personal development.
So it's not just about reaching the destination.
No, it's about the whole journey.
And he even addresses the not-so-fun parts of success,
Yeah, he doesn't shy away from that.
like dealing with higher expectations, maybe even jealousy from other people.
Right, and that pressure to keep performing at a high level.
It's not all easy street.
Definitely not. And he encourages people to stay resilient, be ready to adapt to changes, and always keep learning.
So having that long-term vision, that legacy mindset,
Exactly, and that ties back to owning the new rules, right?
it's about defining what a fulfilling life looks like for you, even after you've hit those goals.
Creating a life that's sustainable brings you joy, lets you make a positive impact.
Love that. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground: honesty, control, relationships, finances, intimacy.
We've been all over the place.
This book really packs it in.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I got to bring up the submission thing one last time.
Okay.
It's definitely the most thought-provoking part of his philosophy.
It is?
So I'm curious, after all this discussion, has your perspective on it shifted at all?
You know, it's funny. At first, I was like, no way, this goes against everything I believe in.
Yeah.
But thinking about it in the context of shared goals, mutual respect, it doesn't seem so out there anymore.
If it's a choice both partners are making,
Exactly.
it highlights the importance of coming to these conversations with an open mind
Trying to understand different perspectives.
and realizing what works for one couple might not work for another.
Right. There's
Well-
no right or wrong here.
It's about finding what feels good and authentic for you and your partner.
Exactly. And that's really the core message of this whole book.
Finding what works for you,
Taking control of your life, your success, your happiness.
not trying to fit into someone else's mold.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what do you hope our listeners take away from all this?
I hope they feel empowered to question their own beliefs, to be open to new ideas.
To create a life that truly reflects who they are.
Beautifully said. And if there's one thing Rick's book has taught us, it's that self-discovery never ends.
There's always more to learn, more to explore.
So keep those conversations going, keep challenging yourselves, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.
See ya.